Okay, hello everyone. Today Abu is actually going to be showing you guys everything to do with PortraitStudio update. So what will happen is that he'll take the mic in a second, but I do have to let you guys know that Abu has had a surgery. He had his wisdom teeth extracted on Monday, so he's still healing from that. He'll try to go and talk to you guys as long as possible about everything that has been changed. And everything's been changed. Everything's been just reconstructed completely. So, no, who better to tell you guys exactly what has been changed than Abu? I am still really, really new to PortraitStudio as well. There will be, he'll cover a lot of stuff. All the new shortcuts and all the manuals, so don't worry too much about that. We will have a handbook out as soon as possible as well. A lot of features have been taken out that will be put back in, and I'll talk about that in a second after Abu's done. But yeah, Abu will take the mic now, and after this is done, we'll take a 5-minute break where I'll choose the work I'll cover for today. So I have not added anything to the docket today, so I will as soon as Abu is done. But I really wanted you guys to have it straight from Abu's mouth. All the updates, all the details, everything to do with the upcoming overall update, which will be released sometime
maybe tomorrow.
Maybe tomorrow. I know I promised Monday. I'm so sorry, but I did not factor in how long Abu might take in order to heal. So this is all really in Abu's hands. He's been behind this. He's the mastermind behind all these changes. It will come soon. I promise you. It's not next year or anything like that. I will not pull a Square Enix on you. All right, then. So here's Abu.
Hello. So there's a lot of stuff that's been added to the new update. This is like a little demo build that I sent Istebrak. Let me just get it in order here. So this is what it's gonna look like. So the first thing I want to show everybody is a lot of people have been asking me about 4K screens and stuff like that, and if they can increase the size of the UI. So in this one, you will be able to increase it a good amount and make it smaller, of course. I'll leave it a little big for now. We go here into our settings panel. You're gonna have a lot more options. Some fun stuff like motion blur, to make it feel nice when you're maneuvering around. Vignette is just for that studio type of effect. Tablet mode, running background, sensitivity. Dithering, so you can get better colors and get rid of color banding. And then you can pick the amount of aliasing you want to make things smoother. Cast shadows on and off. Texture quality. Frame rate. So depending on your GPU, if you have a really low GPU and you want to keep the frame rate at a certain level, you can do that. Enhanced lighting options, so people can optimize their enhanced lighting. So if you have a lower end GPU, you can turn the enhanced lighting options way down and it'll look pretty good. Of course, we have resizable and full screen, and we have all the available resolutions you can pick from. And then something called adaptive quality, which I won't show off here, but basically it's going to be so you can work, and as you're working, everything's going to look lowest quality possible, and then when you stop moving, everything will render at the best quality you have set it to. So that way your workflow, you'll have more frames per second as you work, and then when you want to take that screenshot, everything's going to look high quality how you want it. So those are all the options we have here. There's a little too much to talk about, so we'll let you guys explore that when it comes out. Files is going to work the same way as it does now. There's going to be the file type that you can share with people and rename and all that. One sec. Okay. So, let's get into the new stuff. The field of view slider is going to be up here for easy access. The lighting window has been separated from the model window, and it has two tabs. So if you go into the second tab, it's all ambience and effects. The first tab is going to be direct lighting, so the directional light is going to be right here, the camera light, the point lights, and the spotlight. Now, if you use PortraitStudio a lot, you're going to notice that we no longer have the object lights here in the lighting panel. I'll show you why. So if we go over to ambience and effects, you can see we have the lighting environment or ambient lighting HDR. If you know a little bit about 3D, you know there's cube maps and HDRs that you can use to light your scene. There's a ton of them here. You can choose the ambient strength, the rotation, the reflectivity, and then you can choose to show it as well or show a color. If we go here, we have soft light, skylight, so I'll show you how all that works. Now in the model window, we have primary models and secondary models. So the primary models are going to include anything that's a figure, hands, statues, those low poly girls, the main models, this guy from the logo that everybody knows, so we'll use this guy.
Use the female. Use the female if you want to.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you can use this guy. This is how you demoed it to me.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Alright, so all the options available for your model are going to be here in like a little hierarchy. You're going to have emission, you're going to have rim light, you're going to have subsurface scattering, which is just on top, you know, to get that little wax feeling. Not every model has this. Most of the main primary models do. And you can, of course, change the color. You can mess about with it however you want to get different kinds of effects. But if you want skin, usually you want like a reddish tint. And then we'll pick a regular skin tone here. Set up the light. Okay. Alright, so now the enhanced lighting button has been moved right up here. That way it's easier to access. You can turn it on and off as you like. The default settings for this demo are kind of high, so I have to adjust things a little bit here, but there's a lot of things to mess with here. So if you want those soft shadows if you saw the posts on Facebook or on Instagram, just turn off the direct lighting and then you have soft light here. Turn that on and you have those nice soft cast shadows. Now if we turn down the environmental lighting, that's off, yeah. We can mess with the bounce exposure, so how much light you get from the bounce, and then also occlusion. You can bring occlusion all the way down so you have no shadows, all the way up to get the most out of your shadows. There's enhanced reflections. So when you have enhanced lighting on, the reflections are a little more intense. You do get more detail out of them. So let's add a little bit of direct lighting here. You can get a sort of plastic feeling. Now if you have plastic, depending on the object, you want to turn off subsurface scattering. And then let's go with a red. Red always looks nice. You can get something cool like that. So we're just trying to really increase the variety of materials you can work with, the type of lighting environments you can work with, and just try to make everything easy and versatile. This skylight is going to give a little bit of ambient light just from directly above, like the sky would in real life, and then just give you some soft shadows from the sky. And then you can change the color of that as well. If you have a lower end computer, and you optimize enhanced lighting and you're still having issues running it, especially if you're below recommended, you're going to want to turn that off and then just use ambient lighting here. So you can use this kind of ambient lighting. You can pick an HDR map. You can rotate it around and get the angle you want. And then you can increase the ambient reflectivity.
Keyboard shortcuts. Show off the keyboard shortcuts if you haven't already.
Yeah, the shortcuts are pretty much the same. If you click on the model, well, this is new. If you click on the model, you get to move it around and all that, right? If you press W, it's for the move tool. E is for rotation. R is for scale. Let's go into the secondary models, and we can add all kinds of stuff here. So
Alt to move the camera.
yeah, so if we get this plane here, we can kind of make it like a building sort of thing. Get a wall. If you turn on enhanced lighting, you have bounce lighting and all that.
Look at that! Damn!
There's like so much you can do. I don't even know. I get lost.
You built it.
Yeah. There's so much, guys. I don't even know. But you can add as many models as your computer can handle. You can set up form study sort of things. You can let's say you have a model and you want to clone it. You can clone it, and they're stacked, so they're being weird. But you can just duplicate it and go from there. Let's go to the models with the blend shapes. So if you go to the female, let's say you want to change her facial features. If a model has these kinds of features, you click on the name and then you go to features. It's going to open a model features window, and then you can mess around and do your thing here. All the features are going to be here. When you save it in your project's files window, it's going to save.
Set up a nice scene for them. Set up a really nice scene, some bounce light and the window from the top.
Okay. So you guys can show and hide models too. But let's set up a little scene like Istebrak said. Let's actually just delete this one. Delete this one.
Save slots are still available?
Yeah, that's the one thing I have to finish. Also to mention right now, the camera is more like a 3D program, so if you've used Maya or anything like that, you hit F to focus, and then you hold Alt and click to rotate, and then you use right click to zoom in and out, and then you hold right click to move, and then you can move around like a first person camera if you just hold right click. I'm gonna turn off the motion blur right now. It's kind of funky.
Scene is too drowned out. Do something
Yeah.
show them that thing you showed me with the rotating environment, the HDR.
Yeah. So let's do this guy. Let's add like a cube next to him. And again, you have those nice soft shadows there.
Don't hit me nice.
So if we just do direct lighting only, we get all that bounce light, and then we can also change the color of the plane, which is the floor, and you can add another plane. You can change what the plane is. You can do anything really. You can make it metallic. One thing I wanted to show off is the real-time reflections for the enhanced lighting. Now, to get real-time reflections is really expensive to get them accurate, but PortraitStudio.
Explain explain to them what you mean by expensive.
Expensive on performance. So you, on a GPU to get real-time reflections that are 100% accurate, it's almost impossible to get it real time, so where most people can use it. But we have reflections here that are pretty good representation. You know, you can see the shape, you can see it's like blocking. It's like you're blocking in a reflection, so it's giving you the gist. You know what the details look like here, so you can kind of get nice reflections and see where you can put in your reflections in your scene if you have a scene that's very reflective, which is pretty cool. And then if I pick an HDR like this one, and you can see it in the background here. Wow. Reflecting off of that, and then I can just set it here. So if you want to use the scene, and these are pretty low res, mostly for performance. You know, you don't really need the details of the trees and stuff. You just need the color, and you can see most of the form there. But you can set up a nice scene, like somebody outside or somebody at a park or something like that. Let's see.
So can you explain to them why it's not kind of like optimal or even possible for us to allow users to bring in their own models?
Oh yeah, well, all our models are heavily optimized. We've decimated a lot of them using ZBrush. Some of these we've bought, some of these we've worked on. Istebrak is actually working on sculpting a lot of models right now, and she's going to be putting expressions on all of these, so you'll get a nice little angry face from this guy and smiling. And
yeah, eventually all the models is what we're going to be doing for the next year. All the models will be adjustable, so we see it as not really, at least from what I understand, not really, you know, needed or required for you to bring in your own models.
Yeah, so the point of PortraitStudio is to create an environment where you can study and have all your assets available in one place. If you know 3D and you're more comfortable working with 3D and doing your own thing, then you
wouldn't need PortraitStudio.
Exactly. So
yeah.
If you know 3D and you're comfortable with it, we definitely recommend that you use that because that's a resource you have. But PortraitStudio is for people who don't really know
3D, don't have time to pursue that and add it to their field of study, that they're already kind of covering a lot of stuff 2D when it comes to design and anatomy studies and form studies. So that's why it seems counterintuitive for us to allow people to bring in their own models. It's not a modeling program. It's a lighting it's a studio that creates a virtual studio for the artist to access anytime they want. So it's not so much about you bringing in your models as it is about learning and using it as a resource for observing light on form.
Yeah, so this is a chance for you to learn and to create a quick reference for a painting. It's not really about making something look pretty or accurate or custom. If you're a 3D modeler, you use ZBrush, Maya, Blender, whatever. If you're a 2D person and you want to know how to draw a face from a certain angle and you want to study and you want to get better at your rotations and your form and your lighting,
you use PortraitStudio.
Yes, so that's what PortraitStudio is for. Somebody asked, if you buy a new computer, do you need to repurchase PortraitStudio? No, you just contact us and we'll send it to you.
All we need is the proof of purchase, and typically we don't do that. Right now, PortraitStudio is pretty portable, so we're not really, not portable as a program, but your download should pretty much be backed up by you. We don't want to bring in a whole licensing or registration system. We will have to if for some reason we find that we're in a good, we have the time and the resources to create that. But as far as just back it up as much as you can. The download link that you get is specific to you, so just back it up whenever you can, and you should use that.
Yeah, so you can save your download link and back it up however you need to for the future. But if you really, really need it, you can always contact us.
We just need some information, and then we'll...
Yeah, we just need to know like your order number and stuff like that. But the one thing
I really like that.
the one thing I want to emphasize here is the enhanced lighting and the real-time bounce light and all that kind of stuff. We've really optimized this, made it a lot better performant than before, and it should be able to run on even lower-end computers, like the lower recommended card that we have. It should run a lot better. It's just going to be lower FPS, and you know, in the settings menu you're going to be able to adjust all kinds of settings here. Tons, the resolution of it, the how often it updates. So there's just so many options that we can't even cover here, but hopefully we've shown you guys the gist of the new update. That being the hierarchy, all the things you can do with the models, all the models you can bring in. There's just so many. Like we have the shapes, and we have the main models
Put two
too.
shapes beside each other in an open scene, and shine some light and change their colors to like red and blue.
Okay, so that's a flat one.
Change that environment.
Let's do this guy.
What's with the trailing?
That's the sampling for the enhanced lighting.
Oh, okay.
So when it'll be like blurry when you move around, which is kind of cool.
But it kind of renders when you stay still.
Yeah, when you stay still, it clears up. So it's kind of like when you go to render something in a 3D program. Let me. So you want to make this like red or something?
So this is the best kind of option right now. When you move the program, it doesn't look its best. When you move the camera, but when you stay still, that's when you get the highest kind of quality. And this is just what we did in order to make it so that everyone's computer can run this equally. Why waste a bunch of resources and make it expensive to move around the camera if you don't have to? If you don't have to make your graphics card scream or anything like that.
Scream.
So yeah, this is the best way for us to kind of meet you guys halfway. Abu can make it so that it's not, it doesn't look so, it doesn't lag while you move it. Abu can do that. But again, this update was all about optimizing performance and getting the highest level of quality. So it's all about efficiency.
Well, you can actually adjust it here, but like I said, I'm not going to waste time messing around with that. But if that's really a problem, you can definitely mess with it there. But what's really important is the outcome, you know, not the way it looks as you're fixing the scene. It should be the way it looks when it's done, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's, like I said, there's so much stuff I can go on, but I should probably
just
not.
change their reflectivity for me, and then change the background to white.
Sure, let me just add this. Bring this down.
Yeah, but I hope you guys like the direction that PortraitStudio is moving in. And I can't wait to, you know, bring in my sculpts, change everything up. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. Just add more reflectivity to all of them.
It's fun just making.
What I really like is how it's easy to find the shape you're working on by looking at the color you assigned it to. So don't forget to take advantage of that and assign colors as much as you can. At the end of the day, you can rename the name of every shape you have, so it's easier to find.
We can make the floor like.
Can you make individual shapes glow?
Oh yeah, almost forgot about that. Let's turn off the main light.
Ooh.
And then let's turn this off too. And something else is still on. That's on. Okay. So we just have the shapes here in the dark. Now let's pick the sphere. How about that?
Mm-hmm.
And let's go to emission and bring that up. And then increase that.
A little bit dimmer than that.
Yeah. Let me just move it away a little. Let's bring it down. Yeah.
Turn that up a little bit.
Yeah, and if you don't want these extra reflections, you can turn those off too. So we had object lights, like right now in PortraitStudio, there's object lights in the lighting menu, but now those have been taken out because any object, you know what? Why don't I just show that? Any object can be a light source now. So let's go.
That's very big.
Let's grab this chick right here, and let's do that. So if you have a scene where
it's like a nymph in the water in a pool or something like that, you'll know exactly how to lower her brightness just a little bit.
Yeah.
You'll know exactly how to adjust her so that you know
you can
how the
change
light
color.
emanates from inside out. A lot of students just get lost in how to shade the body if the object itself is a light source. I would lower it down even more.
Yeah, this is the demo version. Some stuff is.
Yeah, a lot more stuff's going to be available. By tomorrow. I'm hoping that we can bring in the neck rig, so the neck movement for the female. It's a very big adjustment that I wanted. I also want to bring in more props, more weapon variety and accessories. Fabric sculptures for studies. That's a very, very big one. I'm always assigning you guys fabric studies. Fabric studies are like a direct reflection of your ability to manage good gradient control and edge work on the same object. There's just, can you scroll down on that for me real quick?
Yeah.
Scroll down on it. So another really, really big thing that I wanted to add is a drawing pen for instruction or demo that I'm going to be using a lot. Symmetry lines added for the male and female busts. Those are very big because what's the point of having a model move around like that if you don't have a symmetry line to track it down? And the rotation, having the symmetry line there, it's very, very easy for me to instruct how compression happens. A lot of the fundamentals are revealed when you have a symmetry line cutting across a model. So for the sake of it being a teaching tool as well as a kind of learning tool, but a teaching tool, I'm going to bring in those two. Skin textures that I will personally paint in on like the big the orc on the logo, or the female and male models will have a bit more skin in. And then expressions, of course, and neck rig will be added. They'll be refined and perfected. And then some of my personal sculpts. So whatever I feel like sculpting, I will be adding those in as well. So they'll come with all kinds of little styles of their own, each sculpture. So you're not kind of limited to realistic only. I'll try to bring in some stuff that I feel has a wider range of styles in the sculptures. And then that'll pretty much just be what we're working on for the next year. Just lots and lots of quantity related changes. So more more models, more model controls, and all of that, and hopefully you guys, get everything out of your purchase. Thank you everyone for buying it. I do have to remind you guys the sale is still going until tomorrow. So whenever Abu releases the update, that's when the sale is turned off. So the reason why I extended the sale past the weekend is because Abu. Oh, that's so pretty. Leave that there. Oh, that is so nice. But yeah, that's why I extended the sale just a little bit. So what are those little jittery bits right there?
Oh, jittery bits.
Is that just it baking or whatever?
Which bits?
That's the on her head. It's just kind of turning on and off.
Oh, that's the shine.
The shine.
Yeah, the shine messes with the subsurface scattering, so that's one thing to mention. So, if you have subsurface scattering on and a really shiny object, it's kind of weird.
That's so pretty.
But this, I did add a little depth of field to mess around with because, that's an art effect people use a lot in photography, but it also could be useful in making something look, have a focus point. I can't think of words.
Yeah. So for those who are asking violently about a Mac release, we have decided, Abu and I, we have decided to expedite the Mac release because of how many people have requested it. The problem is that one of the biggest obstacles is that the Mac release requires us to buy a Mac, which are ridiculously expensive. So we're not sure if we even want to go in that direction, but because people have requested it, we feel like it's worth it. We also will be Another big obstacle is the performance problem. So DirectX is a Windows exclusive. Mac is not allowed to use DirectX. DirectX is I don't know, what is it exactly? It's just something that PortraitStudio uses a lot in order to pull off some of these features.
Yeah, so the enhanced lighting
is a very,
DirectX.
very big one. Enhanced lighting is a massive feature, and DirectX is how we manage that. So because Mac doesn't have DirectX, we're going to have to find an equivalent of DirectX in order to provide Mac users with enhanced lighting features, which is everything you guys just saw. All of that glow, all of that haze, all of that beautiful stuff, that's all DirectX. So what we want to do is figure that out first. But it's really up to Abu. It just depends on what Abu thinks. But considering that, let's officially ask Abu if we do decide on a Mac release before, let's say, the fall. Honestly, how long will it take for us to see a Mac release between now and whenever you do it? Between the next sale in the fall.
It really depends on how many issues or glitches come up when I build a program for Mac. The real problem with Mac though is performance, because you pay $1,200 or $2,000 or even $4,000 for a Mac laptop or desktop, and the GPUs are just so low end, and PortraitStudio is really relying on a GPU. So if you have a low end GPU, you're not gonna get the most out of PortraitStudio. It's gonna Macs are gonna have, the Mac version is gonna have even less features.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't even be able to run them on a low end computer. So that's the real problem with Macs. Price and all that aside, performance is not gonna be very good. Because with Mac, what you're paying for is the operating system and the fact that your MacBook is one piece of aluminum instead of multiple plastic parts or something. So once we get through that hurdle, if we can have PortraitStudio running like maybe 30 frames a second on a low end Mac, then
we can manage that, and then yeah.
Then I can see it makes sense to release, and you will be able to with this update. You can turn off shadows. You can I'll show you guys real quick so you can see. Let's hide this. Let's turn on the light.
Oh, it's so cute.
Let's go to settings, and let's go to the shadows. Let's go to none. So no shadows, which helps performance, but at the same time, if you don't have bounce lighting on or enhanced lighting on,
you just get,
and you don't have shadows, you just have like
2001 Capcom.
Well, this is good. This
PS2.
This is the what do you call it? These are the core shadows.
Yeah. They're honest to God core shadows, so you can still get some of those. You can still rotate the camera.
So you can bring in some ambient lighting and get some of those core shadows and some reflections.
Yeah, of the environment. There's the trees on the ground surface there, but if you guys are okay, I'm sure you guys understand now why we got delayed so much, why it was such a delay to even consider a Mac release, but because a lot of people have been asking for it, we will try, to expedite this as far as possible. I'm sure there are ways to get an equivalent. Unity is a wonderful program, so I'm sure Abu, with his magic, will find a way to get this working. So.
Yeah, and you can make it low. You see the shadows are a little pixelated.
Yeah, you can see the little jittering there, but if you guys can get over that, and the main point is we're also going to be bringing back the screenshot feature, so you'll be able to take full resolution screenshots. And
honestly, I'm still going to add the screenshot button, but if you just press print screen and copy it into Photoshop,
that's just fine as
you're
well.
good. It's
but
the same
thing is, you don't have. What I'm saying is, it's not a video, so you don't have to worry about the bad graphics that you might get because your computer is so low. Because it's just a single shot. It's there for the rotation. Rotate Mr. Crab, rotate down a little bit, and you'll see that that's all you really need for the referencing. That's perspective and the rotation and the cube and the z-axis and the volume revealed per rotation and preserving symmetry. That's what PortraitStudio was all about, so you can still benefit a great deal from it, though we will still push as much as possible the quality in the Mac release. So if you guys have to have it now and you're running a Mac, you can use Wine, W-I-N-E. The program will run a Windows software on a Mac, but we don't officially support that. We don't have any correlation with them.
Yeah, I haven't done it myself.
We don't
so
have a Mac to test that on and promise you guys performance. This is just something that has worked for other people. It is not necessarily going to work for you, but you can read up on it. Look at the requirements to run Wine. Maybe you need a little bit more of a strong computer in order for that. But the thing is, a computer computes, and I don't feel like Mac computers compute anymore. I feel like they're not open for programs like this. We are developers. We're building these really, really useful software, and it feels like we have to go out of our way not only to export Mac to users because of the store and the rules, but because of Mac's just total disregard for quality when it comes to GPU. I feel like they just give anything to their computers as long as they, as long as it works and works as a screen. I don't feel like they've really tailored their programs to, for developers like us and for users like you, smart users who are looking for real, functional programs and software for your craft, for your field. A lot of people associate Mac with like graphics and graphic design and art, and it's just not. It is just not the operating system for that. So this is my opinion. If you run a Mac and you love your Mac, go ahead and enjoy it. But I know we've heard you. We promise we've heard you. But we're just letting you guys know our opinion on the matter, and that though we have expedited the release, it is not. We're being 100% transparent. Is all I'm saying about quality output and all of that. So I am actually going to get started now. This is just so pretty. I love the shadows on the hand. We'll try to get some more higher quality hand models as well. And do you have the functional posable hand model here?
Not in this demo, no.
Oh, not in the demo.
It is ready. So.
Yeah, but the posable hand model is ready for the update. I don't know, tonight or tomorrow, whenever Abu feels better. He did have a surgery, so wish him luck and thank him for all his hard work. Yeah. Because I couldn't keep him down. He just kept trying to get back up and work on this.
I mean, the release is going to happen once. Because what I'm working on right now is the last thing, which is saving and loading. Mm-hmm. I don't want to release it and then you guys work on a project for 20 minutes and then you can't save it.
Yeah, it's really, really important to have that. So
yeah, that just would be really annoying, at least for me. So once that's done and I check everything out and pass it by Istebrak and there's no big issues, then it'll be released. We'll mention it on Facebook and Discord and all that.
Yeah, and we will come out with an official trailer very, very soon with all of the functions and all of the manual stuff. I will myself make that video for you guys, and I'll talk a little bit more in depth about the Mac release, what that might require, and how long. I'll give you guys a good estimate and how long it will take. Since PortraitStudio is already done, technically it shouldn't take so long, but because of the requirement for the DirectX equivalent for enhanced lighting, that might add a little bit more time for the Mac release. Okay, so give Abu a round of applause. Thank you, Abu. So let's get started. Let's get into this. So I'm sorry about my absence on Tuesday. There was just a lot to do. Abu actually had a really, really just a bad time healing from his surgery. So wish him good luck in his healing. He's got like another week or two of this horrible, horrible crap. He had a really, really specific case of wisdom teeth. So he's been trying really, really hard to keep it together, and he's been so strong, kind of dealing with the PortraitStudio update and all the work he has to do, and me forcing him to sit down and just heal a little bit. He's been working really, really hard, so send him your love. Okay, so some updates. PortraitStudio sale is still going, so please remember that. You just saw the kind of rundown on everything to do with PortraitStudio. And what's upcoming. The sale will continue. To reiterate, the sale will continue until Abu says click and the sale is out. And the update is out. Then the sale will go down. So I've kept it going just to stay true to the original mission that everyone should have a copy of this and they should have it at an affordable price. I don't want to ask too much. It will go back to $70 US. Right now it's at 55. So if you like that, if you like the sound of that, head over to the store and grab your copy because it will probably go down just around tomorrow or this weekend. And I will not extend the sale to 2 weeks, even if the update doesn't come out within 2 weeks time. I think it will. So just keep your eye on that. Then I have another really, really important post for you guys, is the next challenge. So whatever we're looking at for the next challenge, what I really, really enjoyed is that we were you guys were involved in the previous challenge topic choice. So what I'm going to do is post really, really quickly around the end of class, what would you like to see for our next challenge topic? And then I want you guys, just the same as last time, submit your suggestions, and I will choose from them, and we will go from there. So I usually have this up for a month, then I have the votes, if necessary, up for a month, and then we will have the challenge. The votes shouldn't last a month, honestly, so you'll probably see the next community challenge in a month and a half, something like that. I can't keep hosting them because I've just become so overwhelmingly busy. Not that it takes so much out of my time, considering all things considered, but it is a lot to, I have to just separate a bunch of time to kind of decide it, write on it, and upload it for you guys, and find a resource pack if applicable, and just do a whole dedicated day for it, which was very, very taxing, looking at like 17 different submissions or more. And then finally, there is Patreon. So if anyone's interested in supporting the channel in any way, if you're interested in that, you can support as a watcher, as a pupil, and you get educational material. Initiate as an educational material, and apprentice, of course, is the highest tier for educational material. It's the equivalent of private tutoring, but in a community, and it's run through Discord. So if you guys are interested in that, you can join as apprentices. And that's it for announcements. Let us get into actual painting and actual art. All right, these announcements are killing me. All right, so I'm just going to go through them. There's no really, rhyme or reason today. I'm just going to go through whatever I see and apply corrections thereafter. So start focusing, please. Get your notebooks ready, because I am handing out rewards for this month for note takers. It won't be every single month. I actually haven't been doing it that much, but for this month, there will definitely be rewards. Brush sets, or even a copy of PortraitStudio for really, really good note takers who are consistent. I like to encourage note taking because it's an excellent way to memorize what you're looking at, and kind of find another equivalent way of recording the information you see, so it's not just going to stay in your memory, but you actually have a written version. You're actually fixing, if your piece is being critiqued, you actually fix it live while I'm fixing it. It's just another way for you to memorize everything that's going on. Okay, so just starting off, this guy's eyeballs are a little bit, what I like to do is just double the layer. So duplicate layer. And go into filter, liquify. So a lot of things here. Number one, I know he's an angry, snobby man, but he still needs eyeballs. So if his eyeballs, if he is looking in the direction where he's looking, kind of like looking down at people, he'll probably look at them through, a kind of raised eyelid, and the eyelid is kind of just like the nose in the way, like at the same time when someone's nose is in the air, so to speak. He's kind of looking down over his eyelid, people. So you want to extend the push of how far the iris is going towards the far corner. And then from there, we're also just revealing the belly of the eye, the kind of the globe shape of the eye. I'm going to do the same thing for this side. I'm not sure why you guys give the slits of the eyes a shape. I don't know why you guys give them that weirdo little shape. So what shape am I talking about? Because I don't want to leave liquify right now. I'm talking about like this little shape right here. I don't know why you guys do this shape. Like, even though you have a perfectly good eyeball, you guys still draw this shit on it. I don't know why you guys do this. I don't know what in your past life, maybe you're Egyptian or something like that. I'm not sure why you do it, but stop it, because if you have a sphere here, and you already know where the eye is going to be looking, you know that the iris and the pupil have a bump, an extra little bump on them. That's the only time you really have to show off the bump and the second bump. And this is as bad as it gets, and it's not even that detectable. And it's not a detail that really, really needs all that much thinking. So what you have to do is just draw your sphere, decide where the eye is going to look, and then the eyelids take the shape of the sphere of the eyeball. And if usually the eyeball is not, the end of the eyeball is not visible, it's way past and inside the skull. So the skull has continued on top. We don't see the end of the eyeball, you guys. So that doesn't mean that the eye corner extends all the way to the end of the eyeball. It ends before him. And then we have the corner. The corners of the eyes are separate from the eyeballs. They're extra little anatomy on either side to keep the eyeball in place. And that's all we really need. We don't need this extra little, like anime shit over here. Enough of that. Because that's really what took away a lot of the realism in what you're drawing over here. So I'm just getting rid of that. Another really big problem that you have is, so good job on the lips. I'm just going to extend this and raise one side over. The perfectly, like the perfect kind of parentheses shape, the brackets, is just too basic for the fact that you went for every single wispy little eyebrow hair, but you couldn't go into detail for how the lip was shaped. That doesn't make much sense. It's not synced. The realism isn't synced. You can't just have a smiley face mouth and super high detail eyebrows. Do you guys know what I mean? It's less to do with detailing and how you rendered it, because you rendered it just fine. I will kill you, Windows. I will actually murder you tonight. I will murder you. I'm sorry. So what I mean, what was I trying to say? Basically, it has nothing to do with rendering, because you rendered really, really well. It has a lot to do with just the kind of the silhouette, the sketch lines you used, the attitude behind how you drew the mouth. It's very cartoony, excessively cartoony, even more so. On another level of cartoony, let's say, on a much more denominator type cartoony style than what you were doing here. You're trying to find something in between, kind of like the style we see in, it's reminding me a lot of the character from Ratatouille. So it's realistic, a little bit more realistic, a little bit more wrinkles than what we see in Ratatouille. I'm also trying to add the front part of the cube of the nose. So you have the nose bridge moving down, and then you have to have the rest of that. So I'm just going to bring my handy dandy little note taker. Okay, so you've got the nose, and then you've got the rest of the nose here. But you didn't have that. You had the nose bridge, and then you went into side view, which makes no sense at all. You have to disconnect the nostril for a second and imagine it only as a basic shape. And then from there, what we do is we apply the nostril on the side. Okay, so then you end up seeing that the nostril is attached, then you've got the septum revealing that cube all the way around here, which you didn't have, which I just added. Then you have the fact that in 3/4 view, everything is hidden just a little bit. So stuff is compressed. You'll actually see the belly of the eyeball a lot more. And you're not showing that. So you have a lot of rotation problems. And I'm sure this rotation problem, it manifests in your anatomy studies. It manifests in the way you draw hands. You know skin. You've studied skin. And you're just trying to do something a little bit, you know, with a little bit more character to it. But you really can't expect, how do you expect yourself to design and customize characters if one of the tools that you use in order to draw a character is not yet refined? So it's like saying, I'm going to design a car. It's going to be so beautiful and going to be really, really great. I'm just not really good with measurements. It's hilarious, right? It sounds hilarious. How can you not be good with measurements if your goal is to design a car? You have no business thinking about designing a car if you haven't at least tried to perfect your measurement system. And rotating and preserving the form while you rotate. So a front-facing cube, you rotate it to the side and you know how to rotate it so that it actually looks in 3/4 view perspective. That's all measuring. That's all measurement and perspective. So, you know, you have no business kind of characterizing and worrying about the variety of design in your work if you have no idea how to rotate a nose. So for this artist, please go rotate some noses, do some grayscale studies. I know they're boring. I don't care if they're boring. The point is that you're never going to make this mistake on stage again. And that's what you're setting yourself up for when you do masterpieces. The old man's eye whites are not too bright at all. I think they're just fine. The artist does have a lot of exposure, and considering that the exposure is brighter than the white of the eyes, that's all I want to say is that they don't consider that the white of the eyes to be as bright. So before I see all that flatness, and after, before, after. And the reason why I duplicated, I'm going to duplicate again. The reason why I duplicated is that I need to take this entire bit right over here and liquefy it. Actually, I don't need to do that. I can just do it here. So what you told me here on this cheek, he's got this beautiful Maybelline contour super duper beautiful beauty guru cheek, which I don't think is good for an old man. I think old men cheeks are a little lower like that. They're a little bit more saggy. They're like a combination of bone that kind of sags a little bit, as well as just saggy cheeks. So what I'm going to do is just keep that, and I'm going to lower this so that we have the same cheek on the other side, which you didn't do. So why didn't you do that? Well, before you had the cheek all the way up here. Over here, you had it all the way up here, but this cheek on this side was rounded. That's not good. Again, that's another sign of really, really bad rotation knowledge. Whoever you are, please start doing some rotation studies. Simple 3/4 view studies, 14-day challenge 3/4 views. You will never have trouble with another 14-day, 3/4 view if you do a 14-day challenge, because it will just make sure you're making all the mistakes you can ever make in their worst version in a study environment. So you don't have to make them here for all of us to see. All right, the Cupid's bow is completely misaligned. The Cupid's bow needs to be shifted all the way over there. I'm going to adjust the nose back to where it used to be so that it can actually compress. So I'm pushing all of this in and pushing the eyeball out. And this Cupid's bow right here, it needs to be aligned with the septum, and this is the septum. So your Cupid's bow was under the nostril, not under the septum. The septum is a little droopy bit of the nose. So how does that work? It doesn't work at all. Makes no sense. Again, another rotation problem. It's everywhere. It's in everything you're drawing right now. And I know it's in the hands you draw. I know it's in the shoulders you draw. I know it's in a lot of the stuff you draw. I'm going to sag the neck just a little bit more. He seems quite old. I'm going to sag the jowls a little bit. And I'm going to bring back that little lip curl from earlier. The eye is just, the shape of the eyelid is aligned with the, with the end of the eyeball, which makes no sense. This should all be sagging down. And if he is kind of like, snobby, he should just raise his eyebrows a little bit. Kind of just add more attitude. So recently, and these will be made available at the end of the year, but recently on Patreon we covered a lot about like the nuances of expression, and kind of what to do, how expression, the difference between cartoony expression and universal expression. How cartoony expression is really, really hilarious looking and not so, cartoony expression isn't realistic, and when you paint realistically, you have to have realistic expression. You can't mix those two together because they look uncanny and funny. So I really recommend you start looking at realistic expression a little bit more. When someone is snobby, they actually do look like this. They don't have to have the actual cartoony version of snobby. So these are the corrections I just made. These are the first set of corrections, and this is the before. So I rotated, I fixed the eyes, and I added that little bit. Jesus, did I almost lose all my work? All right, so first correction, second set, third set, and the only reason why I did 2 sets is so that the nose can actually overlap, just like that. Nice and easy. See that? So the nose needs to overlap a little bit because where we were before, the nose was not, it was not a nose. It was not sticking out the way a building should. It was not doing what a nose does, which is have an altitude to it. So I'm just going to do a little bit more around here. Okay, so a little bit more correction applied. Okay, so he's actually looking in the direction. I'm going to flip the canvas. And do you see what I mean now about the shape here of the cheeks? I actually have to indent it even more so. Don't worry, I'm in another layer. And then I'm just going to erase away wherever the nose is. Flipping the canvas. So this is what I mean about the eye overlapping. The eyeball actually sticks out of the silhouette. This is something you discover while you study rotation. There's a lot of stuff you can freestyle. There's a lot of stuff that, you know, you can still be you. And you can just do whatever it is you do to a painting when you paint. There's a lot of stuff that you have no control over if you want a good read and you want the respect of your peers as being a professional artist. Professional meaning you've studied it. You've studied it thoroughly. I mean, you actually put in the effort and the study required to be called a professional. And this is just the straight up truth. If you're not studying, professionally studying, and I really need this to be a common thing. People need to be referred to as either professional students or not professional students. I mean, you're either casual, dirty casual, or you're not, because you have to have a professional attitude, and you have to think professionally when you are studying, because there's just too much to do. I'm just blending away the part here of the wrinkles that are a little bit out of alignment, and they just kind of seem to be throwing off the focus. And I'm going to decrease the amount of redness on his face. So I'll duplicate the layer again. God damn it. Okay, duplicate the layer, decrease the saturation, and then I'll go back, don't worry, and I'll bring back the redness, but only in the extremities. So the nose gets to be a little bit more red. The eyes get whatever blue they had before, and the cheeks get to have their redness if you really need it, which I don't recommend. He's kind of looking like a princess. And maybe you have a little bit of redness around the highlight, just over here. I feel like that's more of a realistic lighting scenario. I'll just kind of bring back a little bit, 20% off. And then there's the light environment, which doesn't make any sense considering you have this much exposure and nothing to explain why this is happening. Another problem that you have is the fact that you don't have any kind of other color in here other than beiges and pinks. So around the eyes, people have a lot of green, especially older people. So I'm just gonna bring in some of that. I really don't think I should have catered to your contrast, but just so it can make sense, I feel like you are just a little bit too bright in this area, so I'm actually just gonna correct that. Select inverse. I'm gonna get my brush on darken and just throw that everywhere. You really don't need all that much, and I'm gonna darken and apply that beard shadow, thinking about the greater shape. Shape underlying all shapes kind of here, and I'm just going to cast some shadows, not that dark actually, just so we can create some really nice shadow. And look at the shadow you have off the neck, but there's no nose shadow. ¿Por qué? Why? All right, I'm going to cast the shadow off the eyes, and then I'll just bring in those purples and greens in a second. Okay, there is a halfway shadow kind of sort of on the eyebrows, and we're already seeing some progress in the realism. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and bring in all the stuff. So I'm just gonna get brush on soft brush and choose the area I want to greenify, and I'm just shifting the color of the area. So I drop tooled the color of the area. I'm shifting toward yellow. That's as much green as I need. I don't actually have to have green, because this is green and it's too cartoony a value. So what you want to do is shift. Realism is all about illusion. So shifting over into yellow will provide you more than enough green, because a shift into yellow means a shift away from red. And that means that you're getting more green, because anything that isn't, red has a bit of green in it. And purple has too much red to be considered green, and yellow, dark yellow is green, and blue is all that's left after that. And so yeah, it has a lot of that stuff. I'm going to throw in a little bit of a bluish. I'm exactly where I am in my values. And I'm just going to shift over into blues. Actual blue. So this time I'm not really just being subtle about it. And that will provide me with more than enough here for around the mouth and a little bit around the eyebrows. And the color of the eyes is also going to be the color of the whites of the eyes. I feel like way too much is still visible on the far side of his face, so I'm just going to grab it and shift it over. Boop, 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 boop. It's way too visible. Actually, I'll grab the whole friggin' thing. Alright, I'll grab the whole set and shift it over. Alright, just lowering down the opacity so I know where to erase. And so just many, many layers of realism. What was the first layer of realism I adjusted that, what was the first adjustment, which is a layer of realism, and what I'm trying to explain here? What was the first adjustment? Can anyone, describe all of the layers of adjustment I just applied and how they are actual fundamentals? So you see how that was just too much visibility, and rotation means stacking. Rotation means there's an actual active disappearance of the far side of the face. And these are objects that you become aware of as you move on, because it may seem like I'm just, I'm going through a list of stuff, and I really am, but this is stuff that you will eventually become very, very aware of. It won't be stuff that needs a lot of thinking. You'll do this without thinking too much. And I'm just going to grab the bridge and just shift it over. And that's going to give me a nice little bit of stacking and complete the realism. Okay. Eye shape, color zones of the face. Excellent. Sorry, I'm lagging. That was not an answer to the question. Oh, okay. The chin should turn away a little bit more. I agree. There should be some of the jowls visible. Good suggestion. The inner corner of the far eye would actually just disappear as well. And then I'll go correct that now while I wait for your answers. Okay. Got a little bit of that bump there. You have a nice C shape here on the chin, so really, really good job with that. I just gave the mouth a little bit more of a sour look to it. So we have before, after. So we're really pushing the realism at this point, but I want you to see that this is how far you can go with your image. Whether or not this is to your liking, that's up to you. But if it's not to my liking, then I'm going to mention it. And if you're applying somewhere one day, it's not going to be there to their liking as well. People want a realistic version of what you're designing, because eventually, most likely, it's not going to be hand-drawn, and you're not going to get away with the 2D perspective. You're not going to get away with the 2D way you design the character. It's not going to be hand-drawn or flat. It's probably going to be a 3D model of a Disney movie. So they want you to design with 3D in mind, meaning that if you're going to design a hat, you're not going to design it in the flat way. You're not going to design it in a flat version and the modeler has to go and be artistic. It's not the modeler's job to be artistic. You have to design the original, picture of the character, considering all the three-dimensional fundamentals beforehand. He doesn't have to do that for you. So you can't design flat characters for a 3D world. You have to be able to go in and apply all the three-dimensional stuff you need to, so that when it becomes a 3D model, it's not going to be any different. It's going to be what you originally designed. Okay, so stacking makes all the difference. Address the core geometry of the eyes, adjusted rotation, match the levels of realism, color corrected, I'm Istebrak. Really, really good job. So before, after. The light environment was a very, very big one. I don't want you guys to forget about that. And you have a lot of redness in the hair. Just go ahead and make it white. You don't need to be reflecting the skin tone. You don't need to worry about any of that, because a nice gray value makes all the difference for the hair. I'm going to throw a little bit of that red, that grayness, which is with a sponge tool on desaturate, just around the neck as well, because beards go all the way down there. And I would bring in a bit more purple. I lightened the cheek over here. The nose can stay dark. I lighten the cheek. That's really, really important. And one more little correction for the nose, meaning that you have like a little outline on the nose, and that's the that's the giveaway. You outlined around the nose a bit, which is it explains a lot, but it's okay. We're all here to get our butts beaten by Istebrak, so it's not, including Istebrak. It's not a bad thing to discover that you have a bit of line dependency. It's not a shameful thing. It's actually exactly why you guys are here, to discover these hidden, you know, little assholes that are keeping you from improving. So one thing that I want to remind you is that characters that are designed initially with a weird anatomy shape or weird anatomy to them and designed in 3D to have that same kind of distorted anatomy. It's hard to describe. I'll just show it to you. Paranorman. Have you guys ever seen that? It's the best movie ever. I love it. And the way they design the characters is all the characters have just a little bit of asymmetry to them. See how his nose is sideways? But his ears, yeah, they're not asymmetrical perfectly, but they're pretty much where they have to be. So the rotation is intact. But you see the nose is designed asymmetrically. And that's the charm of the style. It's not perfectly symmetrical. The eyebrows are very, very different. And you see all of that asymmetry back here as well. The nostrils are never really aligned. That's just something that they do in the studio. So you can have fun. It doesn't have to be perfectly symmetrical every single time, which is what we just saw with the tip of the nose. The nose was just a bit over on one side. You can do that. You can make one whole eye lower than the other, but that still is three-dimensional if you rotate it. That can still be preserved three-dimensionally if you rotate it. The reason why I'm pushing the style and the realism so far is because the artist push the realism as far as possible. I think they were going for something like this. Remember, don't be cheesy with your color choice. Just be a little bit more subtle. Realism has a lot of subtlety. Remember, realism is all about illusion. A little bit of color goes a long way. I'm going to grab the background color and I'm just going to paint right over the painting towards the top. That's the reflected light from the top. Look at the realism that gives you. It's crazy. This is just the background color. I'm reflecting on the baldness of his head here. Actually, I'm just going to go into light instead. Do you see that? Isn't that wonderful? And I'm just using the background color over here. His head is shiny. It's bald. It's been bald for years. There's no little pores here or micro texture to interrupt the values. It's just straight up bald. No pores or anything like that. And I'm just going to extend that grayness into the hairline. There must be tiny little hairs there. Okay, so better than penguins in Madagascar? Don't bring that up anymore. Is there a good way to study three-dimensionally geometry of the face traditionally? Or is it a ton of life drawing photos study is the only way to go? No, absolutely not, MBBX. Get some clay and sculpt a face. The more you sculpt it, you'll develop like an intimate memory system for what happened when you sculpted it and rotated it. And every time you rotate it to add a little bit more detail, you are recording frames in your brain, which takes a while. It'll probably take you a good month to fix your rotation. But that's if you sculpt like 4 or 5 times a week with some clay, and it's not that hard. You can sculpt on Maya or ZBrush or whatever you need. But I really recommend you, if you're restricted to traditional, or you are just a purist in that way, just get some clay and sculpt away, okay? If you want to practice character rotation, would it be efficient to draw design a character in front, side, and 3/4 view at studies? Absolutely. That's actually an assignment for Patreon this month, is that I'm forcing them to study the side view and the front view, and then the 3/4 view will just kind of fill in. A lot of people rush 3/4 view before they do side view, and side view is the last frame of the rotation. So if you do all three, absolutely you're going to improve really quickly. I'm going to get this white color in the background again, and I'm just going to throw it over the nose. The nose is one of those areas that is really reflective, and that's where we're going to just kind of finish off for this painting. So before, after. If you want to, if you have to, you can go ahead and, here, let me show you. You can just, exaggerate the values a little bit more. He should actually be a little bit more pink. So I'm not this pink, but where he is right now is a little bit too bronze, a little bit looking like a gardener, not so much like royalty. Royalty is a little bit more pale, not touched by the sun. Their values or their blush is still a bit purple, really, really low tan. Someone who is a gardener or someone who is a little bit less, I'd give them warmer tan skin, just like something like that. That's a little bit more tanned, and that kind of will bring back that less of a a polished look. The pink shit, see that as like the the French people, like the Marie Antoinette people with the white wigs. You always use a really, really kind of like a I don't know how to describe it, like a really, really acidic pink. That's something that I use for really, really posh characters. Characters that are just supposed to be perfect or angelic. You use that purpley pink. Characters a little bit more tanned and sun-kissed and weathered use more warm colors in their blush. So if he's a snob, the colors really make a difference. I wouldn't just use a warm, friendly blush like this. I would move into some purples, just like so. Okay. He also kind of looks angry and kind of pissed off, so that might help you there. I'm just going to raise the background color one more time. Just a little bit, and just shift this a touch back toward, oh, I haven't deselected, shift it a touch back towards the warms. So before, after. Okay, so merging that down and moving on. Get some clay and sculpt away. For this piece, it's actually really similar to some of the changes I just made. You are not using, actually I don't even need to torment myself with some, you are not using a universal light source. It's like you have some sort of weird non-light source lighting the scene. When we throw a light source on, we're throwing it both in its value, its magnitude, and its color. So you need that yellow reflected on anything. Everything is slightly reflective. Write that back. That means everything has a degree of reflection to it. So when we are throwing any kind of light here, anything that looks at the light gets some of that yellow. Anything that is not, obviously does not. The thing is, you're showing that the lantern is on. If the lantern is on, this is all moot. We need to go and filter everything into a blue so that the interior and the lantern are glowing. You cannot glow anything if the light environment isn't allowing a secondary light source or a minor light source like that to show through. But I'm just going to pretend that the sun is shining as bright as it needs to. Okay, so I'm going to move into yellow, grab that yellow and just throw it everywhere, wherever there's sun. And you have some sharp cast shadows over here. And what this does, this extra little color that we've added does, look at that. It just completely opened up the scene and created a more realistic light environment for us. So I'm just erasing anything at all that does not look at the light. So this color is specific to anything that looks up at the light. Okay, you don't just throw it everywhere and say Istebrak told me to. Okay. So just the before and after will really reveal what I mean here. Careful not to let this little soft brush in, but this should be something you're applying when you paint. You should, you know, as you're painting, you should consider how this color is affecting everything. But it's kind of just added that little bit of dimension. Remember, this is just a simple wash I've added today. It's not enough. It's not going to be enough. This is just so that the before and after represents a real change. Not so worried about anything tinted black, because that's just black in itself. Shouldn't worry too much about that. So your understanding of a light environment and just whether or not it's day or night, that's really weak for this artist. You need to think about what time of day it is. You're wonderful at rendering. This is beautiful work. You really know how to finish a piece, but you're not thinking about the environment all of these are coming from. So the stuff that looks up actually doesn't get all that light. So just this alone has woken up the scene a great deal. We actually have some sort of light source nearby. The more you raise this, so let me just duplicate, the more it'll add. You see how it's just getting more and more bright? So just get past the weird fuzziness and just look at it as a whole. When we zoom out, you'll see the difference that I'm talking about when it comes to whether or not this is a forest scene or this is a daytime scene. I think because your cast shadows are all moving in one direction, there would be a cast shadow just over here. Okay? So I hope this was like a good kind of reminder to think about the time of day, the sunlight, and what it's doing. You can saturate this as much as you want and shift it around. But as long as it's the same color all around, as long as this color has washed over everything, Usually it's best to stay in a yellow. Okay, that's kind of why it felt stale. Another way to kind of get rid of that stale look, which is how I would diagnose your problem, what I would call it, it's just like a staleness to your values, is show us the difference between wood and rock type ceramic tile and shingles, and show us the difference between the lantern material, which is like wrought iron, versus the window lattice, which might be another kind of metal. Show us the difference between the cement siding, that stucco, whatever it's called on the side, and the wood, the difference between those two. Any areas that are a little bit more in shadow should lose detail, so show us more detail here. I know I washed over this with that. Remember to get your detail back. Go back to every single one of these and cast a shadow. But yeah, just remind us that there's a difference between zones and texture and zones and lighting, and how that'll, how the texture reveals each zone. Just show us the difference between all the materials. Show us more variety. Not all of this is made out of the same material. Okay, so merge down and save. This one's lighting, this one's lighting, and this one is a lot of correction. I might not get to this one. So let's move into this guy. So one thing that really weirds me out is just how you guys, why you guys still think that Dodge Tool is like a valid way to render. Dodge Tool will not render for you. Write that back. So when we're talking about an overcast scene, it's perfectly rainy, and you just have all of this washed out kind of, if it's the moment where the sun came out, the specific moment where there's a little bit of light, I'm not going to believe you. I'm not going to believe that that's what you intended, because that's a little bit too convenient for us to choose that specific moment when there's just a little bit of rain left and just enough clouds that you have the rain and you have high exposure. Even then, it wouldn't make any sense at all. So I'm just going to go and just decrease the values on all of this stuff, because this is the only way it makes sense. Once that's done, once I make sure that there is no exposure and I've actually unified the painting, I will go back and start bouncing light, because in an overcast scene, there's a lot of ambience. So I'm just going to throw that everywhere. Okay, so that's done. I'm going to try to extend his values all the way up so that he doesn't have any random kind of like excessive just jumps in the value that make no sense, that are coming from nowhere. So he's losing a lot of detail. See how much detail you lost because you were washing Dodge Tool over everything. It's such a cute little concept, but you do not have the lighting environment intact, or the just the right lighting period, not just light environment, but you didn't have the light in sync with what you were doing with the object. So the object was shaded completely differently. So I'm just adding some texture. I'm erasing away here. As for the general light environment, I know you think you got away with all this because the little water droplets are so well rendered. That's not enough. That's never going to be enough to pull off a good painting. Nobody cares about how well you do the water droplets if you don't even know what time of day it is. And this is just kind of the common theme now between these. The water droplets are not going to save your painting. You may have found the tutorial for them somewhere. But they are not going to save the painting. Your value for the ground is way too close. For the water is way too close for the value to the value of the feet. I didn't even know if that was the feet underneath the water. And we do that by completely separating the value of the water from the value of the feet. Now it looks like, see that? Now it looks like he's actually underwater. His feet are underwater, and this is his reflection. Don't worry so much about the reflection. The reflection is not a perfect image. The reflection is based off the material it's being reflected off. And this looks like murky water. So it's not making any sense here. Another really, really big change, which I can't really do at the moment, is just the background. So I need to make the background brighter. So if it's daytime, let me see if I can pull it off. If it's daytime, then we can brighten the background, all the background around him. We can brighten it. And that's where we're going to get all of the contrast we're missing, because I know you're panicking. I know you're looking at the Dodge Tool. I know right now you're saying, what the heck did she just do? There's like literally no read left. And don't use read like you know what that word means, because if that word was in your vocabulary, a read, you would have understood the detail difference between having like a really, really massive amount of time and disproportionate amount of time dedicated to the water droplets versus the face. The read has everything to do with the the focal point. So if you feel like you lost a read here, you're panicking, you're like, where the hell is all my contrast? Do not look at dodge tool. Don't look at that. That's not where we're going to get our read. Actually, I don't need to be doing all that. Okay, so I'm mad. I'm really, really mad that there's still this love, this obsession, this fetish for dodge tool. It's not going to make you draw better. It's not going to make you a better artist. It's going to make you a weaker artist for you to not know exactly what the tool is that you're using and how to climb your value. So now that we did this, it makes a little bit more sense. The ground has its value. The water on the ground will inherit the value of the ground, so it's going to be darker. You made everything the same value, and you have that haze of the water splashing back up after it's splashed down. Now that we know what time of day it is, we can go in and reflect the light based off that. So I'm going to just blur the moment when the ground meets the floor, and then I am going to select all and go all the way back to when I started and bring back only the contrast I really need, which I don't think is going to be, where you put it before. Do you see how little sense it made? Okay, so now we're going to just start with the most important stuff. So the water droplets, which again do not make any sense at all because they are more detailed than the focal point. I'm going to start off with the beak, reflecting the light. The beak is a little bit more reflective, so I'm just going to use some value here on the beak. I'm going to throw in some value around the eyes, deleting away at my adjustments and revealing the initial detail you had. Okay. And then I'm going to just starting with the head and the shiny bits, because his fur is wet. His feathers are wet. So he has a bit more of a reflection going on here, going towards the top. And then one really, really important sweep for the core shadow. Okay, I really don't know where the light source is coming from in this piece. Okay, so how do we use dodge tool? We use dodge tool by, first deciding what kind of value we're dodging at the moment. So are we dodging highlights or midtones? I feel like you only use dodge tool on highlights. You haven't used dodge tool on shadows. Dodge tool behaves very, very differently and a lot more easy to control when you're using it on midtones. So dodge tool on midtones really will help you kind of bring out some of the values in here. And then finally we've got the core shadow towards the bottom. So burn tool on shadows. Duplicate the layer so I can delete back. Shadows is too strong. Shadows is the equivalent of using highlight on dodge tool for burn tool. And then just deleting away. So it's starting to look a little bit more like an overcast scene. It makes a little bit more sense. And this is a great place to start for you to make your adjustments. I'm not sure why the water droplets are more important than the portrait of the character. Really, really bad framing. And then I'm just going to bring in that lighten, and then we've got the little reflected light towards the bottom, because that's the kind of environment we're dealing with. Okay, as for the face, you need to go in and make the face important again. So this requires some rendering power, so I'm just going to give him some nice little happy. That looks kind of angry. It's kind of reflecting my current mood. Right, so a little happy, and then I'm just going to make that kind of like a feather, a bump in the feathers instead. Let me just use my handy dandy sketch brush. Okay. And then I'm going to kind of bring in a dark spot go as dark as I want to give him his smile. Kind of looking a little desperate. I'm going to kind of outline. Yes, outline. So I'm running out of tricks here. A little bit toward the lower part here, towards the beak. And just throw the beak in some shadow. As for the design, the most beautiful part, I know it's cute to have a little beak, but it's the chick has already taken care of his cuteness. You can increase the size of the beak and the eyes and shrink the body instead, because at this point it's starting to look like a chicken, not like a chick, because of the design of the body. So you can increase the size of all of this to bring back focal importance, because the water droplets are all the same size as his eyes, which was why we were kind of, these water droplets were like the main focus of the painting, like that was what the story was about. So increasing the size of the eyes might help as well. And then all together with one sweeping motion, I'm just going to lower the levels. And the levels will lower in unison, just like that. If you feel like you need more contrast, apply it. Remember to apply it according to, so I'm going to put it on dodge tool on highlights with really, really low strength. And before I do that, I'm going to just blur out the water droplets in some areas. They don't need that much. And I'm going to just get that dodge tool and just apply a little bit here and there, just to show some of the reflection. I'm gonna increase it, I'm gonna really, really burn it around the eyes. And you see how you have like a core shadow on the water droplets? I'm not sure why you ignored that for the eyes. The eyes also have a core shadow and a highlight. And that might really help bring out the eye. And guess what? We can kind of make it a little bit of a reflected light. Just like that, to bring back some detail. Lower that. Blur it. And of course the beauty standard requires that we have like a little bit of an outline. So whichever the character is, no matter what, everyone has eyeliner on. Eyeliner is a great way to create definition and add that beauty signature, that cuteness, that elf-like feature, and it's just a little bit of outline. So go find your favorite characters animated. You'll see that they have, unless you know it's a unique style, of course, you'll see that they have that little bit of outline there. If it's an animal that's not necessarily so humanized, like it doesn't talk, then it might not have that. But a little bit of an outline goes a long way. You can incorporate it into the anatomy. It doesn't have to be a solid outline. It can be just a little bit around the sides towards the top. It's just like the illusion of it. I'm going to bring back the cheeks with a little bit of light. And this would be something you do with your texture. And slowly but surely, you know, you focusing all your rendering energy towards this will kind of recreate the painting again and make it make sense. I mean, reintroduce the painting, or, you know, give the painting new life, because you're actually focusing on what you need to focus on. And you actually have a light environment. You can go and raise the reflected light on the ground. You can make the ground brighter than the sky if you want to. It just depends on what we're looking at. If the ground is the sky and the background here is all trees, the ground would be all sky, would be all water reflecting the sky. But if it's an, you know, the inversion of that, if there is no, you know, if there is no background back there, and that's where we would get sky, then the ground would be darker. So you can do a little something like that, and like a little, kind of like a C shape to kind of reflect the light a little bit. You can do a little bit of light at the top to show off some incoming sunlight, but not too much. You can throw in a little, so where are you? If he's supposed to be like, you know, finding happiness even in the darkest of times, he can, you know, just have his little beam of light. And I'm just going to adjust that So it actually looks like any angle you want. Usually when it's just off, you know, when it's a little bit more like that. It's a little bit cuter. It's not directly on the object it's supposed to be on. You can do that, and that'll restage the whole painting. But your lighting actually has a purpose. You're not just willy-nilly burning everything up. You know, just burning everything up. Like literally burning everything up. You can throw some shadow on the far side to show, you know, encourage the theme that he finds light in everything, even in the darkest of times. So you have to show the darkest of times on the canvas. Just like that. And you've got the tile canvas. I mean, what the heck? Why? Why do you have the tile? The tile shape for the canvas is a horrible thing to do to your poor little painting who trusted you. Okay, so this is kind of how you start creating a scene. That background horizon line is still a little... I'm just going to use my number 4 smudge brush. Merge down. I'm just going to smudge this out a little bit. So you actually have a scene going on. If you work a little bit more on the detail, if you decide what his color is, just decide what he is, you can actually start making a big difference here. And the difference between obviously the object and the background. I'm going to throw a little bit of a cast shadow. Just like that. You do have cast shadows on water. Cast shadows can happen on water. Write that back. Sorry about the extension of today's class. It's a little bit long. You can detail that cast shadow as much as you want depending on the light environment. It is a diffused environment, so don't go crazy. Okay, so you can cast shadows. What else can you do? There's just so much stuff. You can, because the light now at this point has come from one side, you can, here, let me duplicate the layer. And this will be it for today. I do have to go. But so much stuff covered today. Again, I'm so sorry about my absence on Tuesday. I was really, really busy. But Abu's recovering now very, very well, so send him your love. Yeah, we had a bit of a scare. For some weird reason, the doctors prescribed him something they know he's allergic to. So anyone out there who hasn't been tested for like your allergy on antibiotics, please go get tested. Because having an allergic reaction to antibiotics at the same time you just got out of surgery is like a horrible thing to go through. And that's what happened on Tuesday. That's why the update was delayed. And I'm just like sitting there dumbfounded and wondering what the hell, why his own doctors didn't know not to give him that. How that even happens in medicine. It's just really frustrating. So Abu's been going through a lot, and I'm surprised he even has anything finished at this point. He's done an amazing job. So yeah, Abu needs a break. Abu is the one who needs a vacation. Okay, so I just added a little bit of detail there. You see, it's just kind of brought back the features in his face. And a lot of detail can be made just by creating a really, really sharp edge between the background and the object. That alone can really add so much to the render. Okay, and the more you do this all around, the more you'll see your painting is kind of coming out of the ashes. Oops, right over here. See that? Like we have a real distinction between areas that are light and areas that are dark. Don't add too many gradients in the background for that rainy effect. It looks really cheesy, like a really, really old Hollywood lighting type thing. The way you design the eyes, though, to be honest with you, he looks a little bit, I know you probably might not have intended this, you might have. It looks a little bit kind of Tim Burton-y, but like the bad side of Tim Burton, when he like lost custody of Johnny Depp. That's kind of like what I'm seeing here. He looks a little bit freaked. Usually when we might make a character kind of like relatable, we give them a bit of an eyelid. So just look at how penguins in Madagascar are designed. They have eyelids, and that's how we kind of manage to get an idea of who the characters are and how nice they are. But when the character's freaky, or the character is a minion, or the character is, unimportant or in the distance, doesn't really require all that humanization, then you can get rid of the eyelids. But when you don't have the eyelids, you're really talking about that deliberately freaky Tim Burton post-divorce. I shouldn't be laughing about divorce. I'm so bad. Okay, so we kind of gave him a little bit. He looks a little shocked. Okay, so I'm just going to do that level change one more time. And raise the highlights as well. Darken the midtones. It is a dark scene. And then we have the before and after. So way too much exposure. Your design before was cute. The feathers are way overdone. There was just too much brightness. There was way too much happening. It was like he was getting beamed up. He's almost getting beamed up and he's okay with it. Where here you have a bit more subtlety. You actually have a scene. You have so much more chance to go really, really bright. You can go bright near at the top. You can go bright around the reflection on his base. That'll kind of work as like a indirect halo to kind of make him important again. Just there on the back. See that? You can do a lot with this scene. And you can add all that contrast back that you like. But you just cannot, do what you did before. He was just getting beamed up. He was being taken into the afterlife. Into alien world. I don't want to say anything inappropriate. I will look at these on Tuesday. Actually, I don't have time to cover these. One of the biggest critiques I have for this one, though, is that the head isn't tilted down. She just landed. She just jumped and landed, and she's about to just start running again. And for some reason, she's like looking directly forward. I don't know if you guys have ever done a burpee or ever done a squat. Looking forward is really, really awkward. And I'm not talking about like a, deliberate squat. I'm talking about those like, what she's doing. Where you're about to fall forward type of squat. Your chin is low. But here you force the chin forward because a forward-facing face is the only one you know how to draw. So you kind of just slap that on top of a gesture. You need to study the face in perspective so that it'll actually look like an active, not stiff, realistic pose. It doesn't look so forced like that. The neck wouldn't be that invisible. We can still see her stomach. She's not looking up and we're like on a balcony looking down. We would see her feet down here if her neck was that invisible. We can still see her stomach, so we're still on the same level as her, at least on the same ground level. And for this one, you're not casting shadows out of anything. And this one, the mirror is the light source. So you're still casting shadows like there's a light source top down. Everything here needs to be diffused. If you've ever, it's just really, really simple. You don't have to make everything, super bright. It's not the whole image gets brightened, but you definitely don't have large cast shadows like that. And you have really, really strong cast shadows coming off like the starfish on top of anything behind it. Long, long cast shadow. The forehead goes on forever, by the way. This is the hairline. All I have to do is outline that for you. This is the forehead. Okay. And this is where the eyes are. This is where the nose is. The forehead goes all the way up there. This is typically where the cranium, like the top of the head is. This would be the hairline. This would be all hair. And this would be the forehead. Maybe a little bit higher. You had a lot of forehead going on. I think you drew the face and added everything without planning. I don't think there was ever a sketch stage where, you had the head already designed and then you had the top of the head already chosen. Because at this point, if this is the head, by the way, this is where the head would be for this face. Right here, this is the head bald. Your hairline is all the way towards the top of the head. It should be down here. Or like just around there. Okay? So remember the hair level. So this would be the cranium. This would be the hair level after volume. So remember that hair level to hairline is different than top of the cranium to hairline. Okay? After volume. So hair has volume to it. It actually orbits around the cranium because hair bumps out before it goes down. And that's it for today. Thank you everyone for watching a really, really long hour today. I have just some announcements again, just to recap. So to join our community, all you have to do is go to istebrak.com and click on the Google Plus icon right here. That'll take you to the community. PortraitStudio sale is continuing up until whenever Abu's finished with the update release For the update, you do not have to do anything. PortraitStudio, the next time you open it, will automatically update the new patch. And I will be uploading a question soon for what you would like to see for the upcoming challenges. Please make sure you answer if you want, if you want to be part of the challenges, make sure you answer there and submit your suggestion for what you guys want to see for the upcoming community challenges. And then Patreon for anyone interested in Patreon and for supporting me in what I do. You have Patreon as an option, but you always get something back in Patreon, especially for the kind of the educational pledges here. Between initiate and apprentice, you get the most. Apprentice, you get to be a part of our Discord group, which is a constantly active group where you get your work critiqued, and we have a meet once a month, as well as all of the other benefits of being part of the Discord group. So lots of resource sharing and critiquing and having that tight-knit community, and just all the exclusive content that comes with being a initiate or a apprentice. So if you guys are interested in that, if you don't want to be part of any of that and you just want to support the channel, you have the option of joining as a watcher. My goal is 1,000 patrons. Probably will not see that before I die, but it's a goal. I've seen other channels do it. I'm aiming for that, whether or not it's possible. I am aiming for that. I'm only at 129. I'm very thankful, not only, I'm very thankful for the 129 that I have. Thank you so much. Since January, my Patreon has really exploded. So thank you to everyone who's a part of it. Thank you to everyone who supports. And I will see you guys on Tuesday the 22nd. If you guys want to see any kind of, for the critique hours, if you want to see a theme, you can suggest it as well on the discussion tab in the community. So last time you guys said hair, I did a whole day on hair. If you guys want me to focus on anything specifically and you guys actually do the work and submit homework in the community for me to look at in the studies category, then that will be the theme for the next critique hour. So let me know if you guys have any specific ideas for critique hour themes. I will see you guys. Bye.